Well, Eric Mangini knows Jim Harbaugh. Knows him well. Hung around a little bit in San Francisco. Fox Sports NFL analyst now joins us live. So I did say during the coaching cycle, I'm surprised about Vrabel not landing one. Bill wanted a lot of personnel power. Vrabel may want to say, but I don't think he wants that kind of power. Are you surprised Vrabel didn't land, because he's certainly one of the 8 best coaches available, that he didn't land a gig?
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't get an opportunity. You can understand it to some degree. They didn't have a great finish last season, and then this year not where they wanted to be. So his record over the last 24 games wasn't fantastic. But if you sit down with him and you spend any time with him and you realize how smart he is and how he relates to the players, you've got so many strengths there. Plus, you've got the benefit of him already having his first head coaching experience. I don't think, though, taking a year off and letting him sort of reevaluate things and get recharged is the worst thing in the world either for him.
Do you worry that Harbaugh's had 9 years away from professional football, a sport that's fluid and changes often?
No, I don't worry about that at all. I remember sitting in a meeting room with Jim very early on when I was in San Francisco, and we were talking about different ideas, and someone said, well, can we try it? And he said, we're the San Francisco 49ers. We can do whatever we want. And that was his approach to everything, is in the sense he wasn't going to be bound by conventional wisdom. He wasn't going to be bound by what everybody else thought you should do. If there was a potentially a good idea or a way to get a competitive edge, Jim was all for it. And to me, that's a real strength of a head coach, because some guys get so caught up in doing what they do or the ego of the position, but he had none of that. He was open to everything. He wanted to try it, and he wanted to figure out a way for us to get something different than all our competitors had.
Yeah, by the way, Belichick, I think if you look clearly at New England, when he leaned on scouts and people for drafting, it was very good. The more power he accumulated in the draft, the worse it got. The rings started piling up. In the last 8 drafts, there's not a lot there. There's a lot of misses. I could not give him a head coaching job if he had to run our draft. Am I wrong? I mean, what do you make of not even really Atlanta he interviewed for, but wasn't a very viable candidate?
Well, Ernie Adams was one of his core guys for a long time, and Ernie left the organization, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and that could have had some impact on it. And there's been a bunch of turnover on the personnel side of guys that he's had in those key positions. And anytime you have that, there can be drop-off. Look, Bill has tremendous insight on what works in his system, so it's hard for me to imagine him going someplace else and somebody telling him this guy will work better for you. Now, if he wants another opportunity, that's probably going to have to be the case where he's willing to take at least somewhat of a step back and be more collaborative in that process. But it's hard for me to imagine that that's something he'd accept.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, you were part of that Patriot run. And then you watch the Chiefs run. Now, they're very different. One is defense and culture-led. One's got flash and Andy and creativity. Do you see similarities, comps, better than the other? How do you view it?
Well, I think their run has been better than our run was, because they've been to 6 straight conference championships. And the first year we were in New England, we were 5-11. Then we go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. Then we're out of the playoffs. Then we win the back-to-back Super Bowls, and then we go to the second round the following year. So they've had success every single year over this 6-year period. Now, I think the thing that distinguishes us from them might be the quarterbacks that we had to face during that time period. We had Peyton Manning. We had Big Ben. We had those guys that were really challenging. I don't know if there's the comps for Mahomes. And when Mahomes has had to face elite quarterbacks, Tom Brady, he gets beat in the AFC Championship game. Tom Brady, he gets beat in the Super Bowl. And then you just, wherever you fall on Joe Burrow, he loses to Joe Burrow in overtime. So that, to me, might give us the edge in terms of who we had to play against. But overall success, if they win this Super Bowl, 6 straight years, at least going to the conference championship game, is pretty amazing.
So Ben Johnson said, I'm not going to take a gig. I'm going to stay. J-Mac and I went back and forth on this. J-Mac's take is you strike when the iron's hot. My take is the front office for Detroit's excellent. They're a young team with their star players going nowhere. The NFC's weaker than the AFC, and next year you could have 6 elite quarterbacks that need a new coach. This year, there was one job, Chargers, that had an elite quarterback. Like, I get saying, I like my gig, give me a raise. I'm 37. I'll be another candidate next year at the top of the market. J-Mac's like, you're nuts. Things could go sideways. How do you view that as a former coach?
Yeah, I'm with J-Mac 100% on this. There's only 32 jobs. You don't know what the opportunities are going to be. The reason there is an opportunity is because that organization has a problem. That's why they need to go get someone. And the reason there's going to be an opportunity next year is because that organization has a problem. And you can't guarantee that the success you had this year is going to be anywhere near the success you had the following year. And we see it all the time where you think these are going to be the hot coaching candidates, and then a whole new group of candidates suddenly show up. Who's going to pop from college football? Who's going to become available that we didn't think was going to be available? And now you're suddenly on the outside looking in. Eric Bieniemy is a great example of that. He was the hot coaching candidate for a long time, and then you didn't hear him in this cycle at all. And I had an assistant coach who had an opportunity very early in his career who's never gotten an opportunity since then, thinking, okay, I'm young, I've had success, I'll continue to have success. So you just don't know. The one thing that we can say with certainty is that next year is going to bring a ton of uncertainty. Vrabel's going to be sitting out there. You can't count on that. And if you've got a window and you think you can make it work, you should go do it.
How about that? All right, he likes J-Mac's opinion. How about this one?
I do like J-Mac's opinion.
So let's say, 5 of the 8 quarters Brock Purdy has played with that coach and that roster, he's been outplayed by Goff and Jordan Love, 5 of the 8. If he goes out and it's a stinker and he looks like a second-class quarterback to Mahomes, which happens all the time, this is an organization in San Francisco, Lance, Purdy, Garoppolo. They're moving. They'll just move and go draft another guy potentially. What if Purdy struggles, looks overwhelmed? What do you think San Francisco says the next morning about quarterback?
Well, yeah, look, Brock has been discounted because of where he was drafted, and that's understandable. That's one component of it. I think the other reason people have questions about him is when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo's Super Bowl year, he actually won more games than Brock Purdy did, and his stats were fairly comparable to what Brock's stats were this year. So we've seen this movie before, and we've seen how Jimmy's kind of played out post that Super Bowl appearance. So that's working against him. What I like is the fact that he was able to come back against Green Bay. He was able to come back against Detroit. Things he hasn't been able to do to this point. Now he has this incredible opportunity to beat the champ. If he can go out and outplay Patrick Mahomes against a Kansas City defense, it's not like the old Kansas City defenses. This is a really good group. It disguises. They bring multiple looks. They bring multiple pressures. If he can go perform in the biggest game against the best quarterback of this time period, that's what's going to change the narrative. You're right, though. If he goes out and lays an egg or throws the pick in the key moment that ends up losing the game for him, then San Francisco is going to have to take a long look at it and say, is this really the guy that can lift us up? Yeah.
Eric Mangini, Fox Sports. Are you on First Things First today? Are you going to endure Nick Wright today? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. You mean the assistant GM of the Kansas City Chiefs? Yeah, I'm with Mr. Kansas City 100% of the time. I'm the only not anti-Kansas City, but the only voice of reason.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable take. Eric, as always, good seeing you. Have a good show and a good weekend.
Great seeing you, Colin.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.